Okay, welcome back to Coaching Sidebar. I'm McCarthy, CEO of Echelon Performance. My guest for part two of this interview is Carol Roby. Carol is the Dean of Commodore Academy. She is the Senior Director of People Development at Commodore Builders. Knowledgeable, passionate, insightful. So good to see you again, Carol.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. There's so many adjectives I could put with your name, but one is I consider to be one of the most knowledgeable people about the practical applications of technology in terms of organizational development. Tell me a little bit about your experience in tech. I know you've had, experience. You tell us about, was it the White Hat Warrior project?
Cyber Warrior, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've worked on the agency side, and I've worked for organizations. On the agency side, with Forum Corporation, worked with many global technology and other industry firms, small, medium, and large. But it was where I first started to kind of have a bent, maybe a little bit more to technologies, just understanding them and appreciating, and sometimes being challenged by them in general. But I also then worked after Forum for a startup called Cyber Warrior Academy, which I actually built Cyber Warrior Academy, and we were tasked with, we were addressing the issue of the gap in that space. It's a talent gap, and this was 5 years ago, where there were incredible needs for talent in cybersecurity, given how new that industry was. And we basically had to manufacture the talent because it didn't exist. So we created, and this was a global challenge, an opportunity. The organization I was with created something called Cyber Warrior Academy, which was a certificate training initiative meant to find people that had cognitively the capability to be hackers and cyber warriors. And so we built assessment and capability around articulating what those capabilities might be. So as an example, we found that librarians had a headset and a capability to be amazing hackers. Probably obvious when I say that now, but in terms of their ability to search for data, find solutions, and having that headset. Separate from, of course, ex-military, ex-law enforcement, we also found musicians to be wired cognitively, to be exceptional cyber warriors. And so we were looking at identifying those things and then providing training, skill sets, training very specifically to help people start in those careers. We actually also initially decided that we wanted to focus on diverse communities. So our recruitment efforts after this exceptional program was built was focusing on women, people of color, and veterans. We wanted to give those folks that were typically disenfranchised an opportunity to have a stake in this growing, amazing economy that was going to be evolving. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that one of the most gratifying parts about it was wildly successful. We actually sold the program to at a university level here in the state of Massachusetts. And what was most gratifying for me was to know that we had people starting out in this program, either coming from very low paying jobs or having been laid off or displaced, to tripling their income and making significant contributions back to their communities, as well as starting out in a great career. So that has since evolved, and there's DHS funding for what we had done. And of course, we all know how that industry's evolved. That's where I came here.
That's incredible. To have that vision, and I know how passionate you are about people and diversity and inclusion and bringing people up and bringing them together. It's such an incredible. We could talk. I could. I hope you could for hours about that. I just think it's an amazing story. But you and I, the last time in the last session, we were talking about the role of technology in organizations and in organizational development, particularly. And I said, I don't think there's an organization that I know of or that I work with that is not touched in a deep way about what seems to be a really rapid evolution of available tech. And I really wanted to get your take on, and we touched on this a little bit last time. Technology can be scary. There's a lot to learn about it, but it can also be used as a source of learning and collaboration and really strengthening the culture of an organization. And you started to talk a little bit about how you're using some new tech and some new ways of doing business and almost positioning it as here's a way for us to learn and grow together. Can you talk more about that? Because again, commercial building is not necessarily considered super high tech, but the way that you're incorporating it, I think, is brilliant.
Yeah, having a natural curiosity and love of all things technology, I was eager to figure out how to bring that into this culture. And I'll answer the question directly, but we'll start out by saying, picking up on where you ended, which is one of my goals here is to develop a learning culture. I don't think this industry is thought of as that. Training is typically, and people development is, typically thought of that thing you do for an hour and check the box, and you've got your certification in fill in the blank. And so it's not just here. It's not just as this industry, but certainly this industry is not known for developing learning cultures and or necessarily people. But I think I'm in the people business more than the building business, and because it's the people that build the buildings. And we have, on the learning end, to answer your question, we continue to look at ways that we can meet people where they are with learning and leverage different tools and resources and capabilities to help them identify for themselves how they can use the tool, but more importantly, how it's going to help them change their behavior or enhance their behavior or do more of or little of whatever it is that they would want to do.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking at new capabilities, whether it be on the instructional design side with, various kinds of technologies that come out with gamification, with AR, with VR. We talk about using drone technology, which we do for the building of our buildings, but also how might we leverage it when we're looking at our projects that we're building and wanting to develop learning around our project and using the capabilities that we have to do that. We also use open space. It's like a GoPro where we will oftentimes to track the progress of our day-to-day on our project sites and to be able to communicate that up to our owners and our clients. How can we better think about leveraging that as a learning tool as well? Figuring out where we are every day, but also lessons learned and leveraging that technology to do it. And not being so afraid of technology, to your point. Most people, whether young or older, think about it as a tool, a process, a thing. And we've tried to demystify it and think of it as just another way that you're gonna find something out about yourself or something that you can use and leverage to learn more about. So whatever it is.
You just said a key word, and I've never heard anybody else use this word. You said demystify. And I think that is so critical. So in your setting, demystifying these new approaches, whether it's gauging the progress of a project or whether it's the VR, AR, and taking that and making it more real, making it something that's you were saying before, like a tool, like a hammer or a screwdriver. Now we're using, this tool. And I think that that's really an important aspect of all this, which, put yourself in any other organization. There's a part of tech that's kind of out there, and that idea of demystifying it and just seeing it as another way to help you be more efficient or more effective is really powerful.
Yeah.
It's great mindset.
Yeah. I think about one of the opportunities I had here early on was looking at, and I think this is in the technology conversation, but it's to your point, around data analytics, data science, which I do believe is a future of work skill. I mean, it's not just future, it's now, but and it's been evolving, but a leader cannot be successful unless they really understand and have a sense of data their own organization, their own team's data, how well they're doing, how they're stacking up against others, what the expectations are. But more importantly, the analytics of the data. What do you do with it? How do you analyze it? How do you tell a story around it? How do you make it come to life? So we, decided to purchase Power BI and a few other technologies to help make sense of data. And of course, initially, I think a lot of people were talking about demystifying. It's like,
but now I have even more data. Yeah.
More data and more buttons to press to try to figure it out.
Right.
Yet when you kind of see what comes out of the meat grinder and, you suddenly have these amazing charts and ways of looking at things differently and can tell a story around that. There's typically an aha moment once you demystify technology and someone has an experience and then they come out the other end. They see the value and how it can almost change your life as a leader, as an individual. I mean, there's countless ways that can happen.
Yeah. Well, I call it the Moneyballization of corporate America. Remember that book in the movie Moneyball?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Oakland A's, if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, I was going to say go down to Blockbuster and get it because it's pretty old movie.
You're aged.
But it centers around this idea of using critical data as a decision-making tool. Basically, that's basically what it's about. And I think you're right. I think and I think of that scene where they're all sitting around the draft room and they're talking about the hows and whys of drafting different players. And there's just this one lightning, the main character is just saying, nope, this is why we're doing it. And this is how we're doing it. And he has demystified this whole process and now has adopted it as a way of thinking and a way of operating. And I think a lot of effective managers and effective leaders are doing the same thing, right? They're embracing these skills, they're embracing these tools and saying, this is making me even better. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Ed. And I think that this whole discussion around digital literacy is it isn't a one size kind of thing, right? So I just rattled off a few different things that we're leveraging and using here in this industry, which may not be relevant in either another company or another industry, or for a leader in a smaller team or a larger team or different team.
Yeah.
So that really has to be tailored. Your digital literacy, you have to have it. And what that means for you might be something very different than what it means for me.
That's the takeaway. You have to have it. So if you're afraid of it, the only way to really demystify it, to go back to your term, is just to dive in and start to learn and expose yourself to these tools and these insights.
And start with data. I think that's the easiest, best way is your own organization, your own team's data.
Yeah.
And figure out a way, leveraging tools to make some more sense out of it.
No, that is absolutely excellent advice. We're totally aligned. Carol Roby, the Dean of the Commodore Academy, Senior Director of People Development for Commodore Builders, and absolutely tech, super tech. What did you call yourself originally? The galactic, whatever.
Galactic Queen of the Universe.
Exactly.
That was a joke.
I know it was a joke, but your depth and your passion for technology is just boundless. I remember talking a couple of weeks ago, and you had said you were looking at the role of tech, 25, 30 years ago in terms of learning and those types of things. So I know it really runs really deep, and that was an excellent piece of advice, just the embracing of what's available and making yourself better through that level of comfort. So great advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. You want to come back and talk a little bit more? Because I have a few more questions that I would like to ask you.
Sure. I'd love it.
Awesome. We'll be right back.